Hello, this is Angelia with the podcast Why You Do What You Do. You're either watching or listening. And last time we were talking about sexual issues and attitudes. And we're going to take up on that. Attitudes differ regarding sex in different areas and different cultures and things. The change in attitudes towards premarital sex among young adults in the United States since the 1960s is still striking. Because back then, like I said, if you had sex, you got pregnant, you had to get married. Oh, you were a bad person if you had sex before you got married. Nowadays, no, people are a lot more liberal when it comes to that. Between 1965 and 1994, disapproval of sex before marriage fell from 63% to 30% among men and from 80% to 44% among women. So, of course, you know, that's a surprising number because you would have thought the guys were more accepting of that, but maybe the guys were, doing it to begin with. Who knows? No judgment on these things. In some other respects, however, the change is in sexual attitudes and behavior is not so dramatic. Neither men nor women appear to be as promiscuous as in some is sometimes thought. So, I've heard women say all men are dogs and whatever, and they're not. And then I've also heard guys who've come out of a bad relationship or two say all women are sluts, and of course they're not. So, the median number of sex partners after age 18 is 2 for women and 6 for men. So the guys are still a little more promiscuous than we are. Most people meet their partners through mutual acquaintances and thus tend to be similar in age, educational level, and racial, ethnic, and religious backgrounds. About 30% of adults, because of their threat of AIDS, say they have modified their sexual behavior by having fewer partners, choosing them more carefully, using condoms, or abstaining from sex. And certainly, that's not hard and fast rule. A lot of interracial couples get married, and works out fine. But in general, you do meet your other significant others through friends or family or whatever. And, that's pretty much how it goes. A lot of people meet at work, or at college. So, that's kind of a gimme there. And again, once AIDS came on the scene, it only makes sense to practice safe sex. Acquaintance rape is a problem on many college campuses, and I know that. And there are a lot of other women who know that. And that's why I hate seeing those cases, that come into the news where everyone's blaming the girl. Because, trust me, nobody's asking to get raped, It's not a thing. College women are approximately 3 times more likely to become rape victims than women in the population as a whole. So, when you're on the college campuses, use the buddy system, And if you can't use the buddy system, have a rape whistle, have some pepper spray, that'll go a long way to keeping you safe. Ride a bike or something instead of walking. Look out for yourself. Rape prevention programs have had some success. In one study, college men who participated in an hour-long session designed to provide accurate information about rape and debunk myths about it became more empathetic towards rape victims than a control group and also became more aware of what constitutes rape. Because there are guys who think if you don't beat the woman up, if you don't hurt her, it's not rape. You're just pressing her, you're doing something to her, it's not rape. Well, that's wrong. Anytime a woman says no or has sex with someone that she didn't say yes to, That's rape. Between adolescence and young adulthood, gender differences in frequency of intercourse and incidence of masturbation increase. And of course, this is because, you're wanting that partner. And if there's not one at hand, you'll just kind of take care of business yourself. That's a young people thing. American men are much more likely than American women to masturbate and to approve of casual premarital sex. Again, probably not a surprise to any of us. However, an overview of 177 studies done from 1966 through 1990, which included nearly 59,000 males and 70,000 females, largely young adults, found no gender differences in sexual satisfaction or participation in oral sex. So, somebody actually studied that. Can you imagine that grant proposal? Yeah, okay. Also, the sexes were quite similar in attitudes about masturbation, homosexuality, and civil liberties for gays and lesbians. So, in general, young adults are on a pretty even keel with each other. Negative attitudes towards homosexuality are slowly diminishing in the United States, but nearly 3 out of 4 men and more than 2 out of 3 women still disapprove. And that's because, honestly, of ignorance and attitudes from people that they came up with. Like I said, it happens in nature. It's not an everyday occurrence. It's a smaller occurrence, but it happens. And there's all kinds of theories on why it happens, but it's just a natural fact. According to a Newsweek poll, nearly half of the population surveyed consider homosexuality a sin, and 1/3 of the respondents in another survey believe that it is an illness, contrary to the stated position of the American Psychiatric Association. So, more conservative folks and actually religious folks are taught, that it is a sin. Now, I'm not going to get into parting out the Bible, but there are parts that I believe were written by men and parts that were divinely inspired. And, I don't know. God knows. I don't know. I just know what I've heard, and then I also know what the scientific evidence is. And that's why some people have a problem with me being in the day, a minister and a psychological consultant. They say you can't do both. Well, you can, but it also will show you that there's gray areas. So, you have to be willing to put up with that if, you're going to be both. The social stigma, again, homosexuality, and the discrimination that reflects it may have significant effects on gays and lesbians' mental health. Studies have found a higher risk of anxiety, depression, and other psychiatric disorders among gays and lesbians than among heterosexuals. And that's, of course, because of this discrimination. There's still a lot of discrimination here in the U.S. The pattern of strong disapproval of homosexuality, even stronger disapproval of extramarital sex, and far weaker disapproval of premarital sex also holds true in European countries such as Britain, Ireland, Germany, Sweden, and Poland, though degrees of disapproval differ from one country to another. The United States has more restrictive attitudes than any of these countries, excuse me, except Ireland, where the influence of the Catholic Church is strong. And again, that's what I say about the people with the Puritan ancestors, and they're staunch on their belief systems. For example, in Germany and Sweden, only 3 to 7% of adults disapprove of premarital sex. So that 3 to 7%, that's a pretty small, group there. In China, sexual attitudes in premarital and extramarital sexual activity have liberalized dramatically despite official prohibition of sex outside marriage. And like I say, it's pretty much the mainland China where those are kind of a thing. Like say Hong Kong is kind of a free-for-all. Surveys taken at 5-year intervals in the Netherlands found that, much as in the United States, attitudes towards extramarital sex liberalized between 1965 and 1975 and then became more restrictive because we had, the sexual revolution, and then people start realizing, oh, well, maybe screwing everything that moves and everyone is probably not the best, policy there. Let's dial that back a bit. Younger, more educated, and less religious people tend to have more liberal attitudes about sex. And men are still more liberal than women. Of course, they are. Non-marital and marital lifestyles. Today's rules for acceptable behavior are more elastic than they were during the first half of the 20th century. Current norms no longer dictate that people must get married, stay married, or have children, and at what ages. Because back in the day, that's what was expected. I mean, if you had a daughter who was 20-something years old, she was an old maid, if she wasn't married. And I imagine there were probably a whole lot of unhappy marriages going on back then because they was marrying him off to whoever they thought was a good match for them. People may stay single, live with a partner of either sex, divorce, remarry, be single parents, or remain childless. And a person's choices may change during the course of adulthood. And, most of us have an idea of what's right for us. Some people don't. Again, you gotta know where your compass is and how to use it. So there are people who come out early and, connect, make mistakes or whatever. There are people who wait and come out later and might still do the same thing. So everybody's different. The proportion of U.S. households consisting of married couples with their own children dropped from 40% in 1970 to 24% in 2000. So, marriage became easily annulled, easily, dissolved. In fact, most divorce decrees are dissolution of marriage. Excuse me. So it's become all too easy where if you're not happy with your partner, you can say, you know what, I'm not happy with you and I'm done with this, and to get a divorce. Meanwhile, the proportion of households in which one person lives alone increased from 17% to 26%. So that's almost a 10%, growth in single households. People marry later nowadays, if at all. More have children outside of marriage, if at all. Bless off, bug, name Jesus. And more break up their marriages. So, it's almost like people kind of shying away from the marriage, and then it's more a flex thing if you have one. And that's because, like I say, it's all too easy, to get a divorce. Here in my state, they've instituted counseling. You have to go to like an exit counseling to get your divorce. So that's a good thing, I think. But, I think if people did wait till they're older, about 30, to get married, a lot of these divorces wouldn't happen because a lot of them are younger folks who loved each other, got married, then realized later on in a few years the person is just not who they thought they were, and maybe they are not who they thought they were, and maybe they change and grow, and maybe the other partner doesn't want to change and grow, and then there's kind of irreconcilable differences there, and marriages fall apart. Still, an overwhelming 95% of men and women have been married at some time before age 65, indicating that marriage is still very much a part of American life. And it probably will be, because most people do want a spouse, someone to spend their life with, and, as the fairy tales tell us, live happily ever after. Well, good luck with that. It's not going to be happily ever after, sorry. There's going to be stuff to work out and compromises, probably on a near daily basis. So realize that your partner is a person and allow for that. Single life. The number of young adults who have not yet married has increased dramatically. Almost 2,000, about 45% of 25 to 29-year-olds have never married, a threefold increase from 1970. So our young folks aren't getting married as soon, and in my opinion, that's good. And there are some who might never. Even among 35 to 44-year-olds, 15.5% still had never married. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, because that says there's an adjustment problem there. Because, we're wired to want to pair up. That's just how we are. We're wired to want to have somebody, and that is one of the goals of development, is to become, a person who is, capable of handling a relationship. And if you don't navigate that, then you become a loner, and that's not so good. The trend is particularly pronounced among African American women, 35% of whom remain unmarried in their late 30s. And I have heard some African American women tell me that's because men are dogs. But I've also taught some of them in my coaching and teaching that people will allow what you allow. People will treat you the way you allow them to. So if you're allowing that man to be out there being a dog and not marrying you, he's probably going to do it, and as a part of culture, that's kind of looked up to. It's like, hey, I cheating on my lady, did this with this, and this is my baby mama, and stuff. But again, that's because it's being allowed. If you put your foot down and don't allow that, then things might start to change. In a study of 300 black, white, and Latina single women in the Los Angeles area, members of all three groups had difficulty finding eligible men with similar education and social backgrounds. But unlike the other two groups, African American women, whose average age was 40, seemed relatively untroubled by the situation. And in bigger cities, that can be a problem, because more and more women are becoming educated, and like we read a while back, that most of the bachelor degrees awarded were for women. So women are becoming more educated, and if you're in a city where a lot of men are not, that is a disparity, and that really shouldn't be a criteria for a partner, whether they have the same education level as you do. But a lot of women like for their partner to be pretty close. So it can be a problem. And again, like I say, I'm not an African American woman. I'm multi-ethnic, but I don't look African American. So I can't say that if they change what they accepted, they would change that situation. But psychologically, that's what you're taught, is that what you accept is what will continue. Perhaps that the timing of events model might predict this is because they saw singlehood as normative in their ethnic group. So if it's not abnormal, they are more likely to accept it. While some young adults stay single because they have not found the right mates, others are single by choice. And I've heard some of my own children even make comments on, and I'm like, no, that's not right. That's not true. Well, yeah, so and so, and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, girls our age, and stuff like that. So don't let one or two bad experiences keep you down. Because there's someone out there for everyone, they say. And if you let some bad experiences keep you from getting to know people, you might miss out on something that's really great. More women today are self-supporting, and there is less social pressure to marry. Because back in the day, and unfortunately my mother was part of the generation that felt like a woman had to have a husband. You had to have a husband to take care of you. And like I said, I was not allowed to move in with girlfriends or live by myself, but I was allowed to get married the weekend after my 18th birthday. So that logic was not the best logic going. Some people want to be free to take risks, experiment, and make changes, move across the country or across the world, pursue careers, further their education, or do creative work without worrying about how their quest for self-fulfillment affects another person. And there are people who are like that. They don't want to worry about the hubby or the wife having to tag along or where they need to go and this, that, and the other thing. And that's an individual lifestyle. And everyone should live their life. You shouldn't let another person dictate your life. And, honestly, if you are in a good, healthy relationship, it'll be able to survive you going here, there, or the other upon occasion without them. It's okay to spend some time apart upon occasion. Some enjoy sexual freedom. And there are people like that. Unfortunately, a lot of those people end up with STDs and, unwanted pregnancies and things like that. Some find the lifestyle exciting. And some people do. They like being single. They don't want to be married. And usually, again, we're back to the maladjustment thing. Some just like being alone. And there are people who like that. I think one of my uncles was like that. He just likes he liked being alone. He didn't want anybody bugging him. And some postpone or avoid marriage because of fear that it will end in divorce. And that's especially if your parents got divorced. Postponement makes sense since, as we'll see, the younger people are, when they first marry, the likelier they are to split up. Like I said, the younger you are when you get married, it's more likely you're going to split up. So that's why I recommend wait till you're 30 to get married. When you're 30, you can get married and then have your children between age 30 and 35, when it says most adults are mentally and emotionally able and willing to raise children. So in my book, and in this book, postponement of marriage is not a bad thing. By and large, singles like their status. Most are not lonely. They are busy and active and feel secure about themselves. And you should. And if you don't, you might want to go talk to somebody about that. Gay and lesbian relationships. Adults are more likely than adolescents to identify themselves as homosexual. And that's because when you're an adolescent, you don't know what you are yet. That's why, I'm so against these, sex changes for children and young adults. It's like, no. Because you're not a sexual being yet. You don't know what you are or what you want. You think, because you're a kid, and it might be acceptance from other people or whatever, but you don't know yet until you're an adult because you're not sexually mature. Still, fewer than 3% of U.S. men and 1.5% of women call themselves homosexual or bisexual. And that's simply because they don't want that stigma. Because there's still, as we read, a lot of stigma here in the U.S. Slightly more, 5% of men and a 4% of women report at least one homosexual encounter in adulthood. And, it happens. Sexually I consider myself, not that it's any of your business, a bisexual. Because I have had girlfriends. I love people for who they are. I am not, just sexually attracted to a person because of their body. That's just never been me. I like the person inside. And if I like the person inside, and get to know you, I might fall in love with you. And to me, your body doesn't matter because it's you that I love, not your body. Gay or lesbian identification is more common in big cities. 9% for men and 3% for women. If they're in an environment where it's more socially acceptable, they're more likely to come out and say, yes, I am. Because of strong societal disapproval of homosexuality, coming out, the process of openly disclosing a homosexual orientation, is often slow and painful. And I've talked to different psychologists about this. In all honesty, you don't have to come out. You're too worried about what other people are thinking about your sexuality. Your sexuality should be your sexuality. It shouldn't be everybody's sexuality. So, you don't ever have to tell people, you can live your lifestyle how you want, and the well-meaning aunties or whoever will be like, when do you find a girl and get married? Like, oh, I don't know, you don't ever have to tell them, oh, I'm gay. I'm not going to ever find a girl, because then they're just like, oh. So, if you don't feel the need to come out and tell people, just don't. Because it's none of their business anyway. They need to be minding their own business. Coming out generally occurs in 4 stages, which may never be fully achieved, because a lot of people feel like they take the first step and then people are so against them, oh, well, they don't take any other steps, because it's like, well, if this is how people can treat me, Recognition of being homosexual. This may take place early in childhood, or not until adolescence or later, like when I kissed Lisa Ping. It can be a lonely, painful, confusing experience. And it is, because when you realize this, that all these other girls or boys are, attracted to the opposite sex, and, is there something wrong with me? Is there something different, about me? And like I say, it happens in nature. I've seen gay dogs, gay bulls. It happens in nature. So it is just a thing. They've looked at DNA causes. They've looked at chromosomal causes. Now, I'm not saying there aren't mental health issues, because in some people there are. Now, some of these people, they got some mental health issues, and they're trying to gain acceptance in a community that's accepting in their opinion. So they're doing this thing where they see a potential to be accepted. So, there's all kinds of reasons, but only you know for sure what the reasons are. And if you're doing something for the wrong reason, it's time to go talk to somebody about it and figure out, what your deal is. It can be, getting to know other homosexuals and establishing sexual and romantic relationships. This may not happen until adulthood. Contact with other homosexuals can diminish feelings of isolation and improve self-image. Because then they say, oh gosh, I'm not alone in this, and it's okay, and I can go in here and be accepted. Telling family and friends. Many homosexuals cannot bring themselves to do this for a long time, if ever. The revelation can bring disapproval, conflict, and rejection, or it may deepen family solidarity and support. And like I say, somebody just heard this now, probably for the first time. It's like, oh my God. But it's like, I feel like none of your business. That's on me, Complete openness. This includes telling colleagues, employers, and others. Homosexuals who reach this stage have achieved healthy acceptance of their sexuality as part of who they are. And like I said, from my point of view, that's none of anybody else's business. I'm not worried about what they're doing. Why shouldn't they be worried about what I'm doing? Gay and lesbian relationships take many forms, but most homosexuals, like many heterosexuals, seek love, companionship, and sexual fulfillment through a relationship with one person. It's called being monogamous. And, there are a lot of people out there that think if you say you're bisexual, that means you're, promiscuous. It does not mean that. I am a monogamous person, and most people are. And that's, in my opinion, the way you should be. Such relationships are more common in societies that tolerate, accept, or support them. So, if everyone in society would just be okay with it, it wouldn't be such a big deal. The ingredients of long-term satisfaction are very similar in homosexual and heterosexual relationships because, you know, a monogamous, committed relationship should be the goal of any couple. You know, that's just the way that is. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. I hope that helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.